All right. So we are meeting to discuss the impact of blended learning within any type of classroom setting. It could be elementary, middle, high, it could be private, homeschool, whatever you're doing. And we kind of just want to discuss like the different, maybe the positives of blended learning, maybe some negative impacts you've noticed, how it helps improve your organization, those type of things. I was thinking, at least for me, I know I can discuss those with my kids. What about y'all?
All right. Just in case if we need to introductions, I am Jessica Jones. So,
It's me, Amanda Baggy. Yes, good idea.
Yeah, and I am Les Breeding.
all righty. I think those are wonderful topics. I mean, I'm sure, and it's going to segue into other topics as well. As you know, it triggers a thought process of something we can relate to. Um, as we said, pandemic learning and digital integration is huge. So it's pretty much made almost every classroom a blended learning experience. So.
You're right.
Well, it did. I often say that it was at a huge advantage because I've been doing some form of blended learning for about 10, not quite 15 years. Well, actually, now 15 years. Yeah. And because in my previous life as a college instructor, I worked out of Moodle and out of Canvas, and then I began to figure out how to get students to do more learning offline, so that whenever we were in the classroom, we could be more, had a different kind of learning. We didn't have
Right.
to
Like
be
connection
totally
based.
in a lecture format.
Right.
And then comes COVID, and COVID, made it so that my students kind of knew exactly the routine. We were already in Google Classroom,
Mhm.
and so there wasn't any new learning for them. Whereas most of my instructor friends, it was like, what did you say that Google Classroom thing was?
I had similar, but I've only been in the field for 6 years. This is my sixth year. And I just remember going through my undergrad knowing, got to include technology, got to integrate it. You got to integrate it, different types of learning. So that was stuck with me from year one. And so I remember being like, all the trainings, any training, I was there. I was presenting. I work in Houston area, so I was presenting at one of their technology conferences. And for 3 years, I presented the platform Nearpod and all the benefits
Cool.
to use it with, your students and all the great ins and outs. But the real buy-in was, hey, look, it can grade, it can pull data, it can do, and all these things. And I'd get amazing feedback from it. And then I started, seeing other platforms, and I looked into Google Classroom, and I did that for several years, and I loved it. And then the district said, "Hey, by the way, elementary schools, y'all are going to be coming over to Schoology because that's what we do in middle and high school, and we need to
Mhm.
make it all the same thing." And that was the year right as the pandemic hit, so we had a real crash course.
Mhm.
Um, and so it was different, but my students likewise were already very used to having to be online and used to any quick little link I could put there because I wanted them to practice, or quiz or anything like that. So it was really, that part wasn't a big shock for me or my students. It was just learning the new platform that I personally struggled with.
What do
Right.
you what do you think of Schoology? We were thinking of going to Schoology right before COVID,
What is
and we were
Schoology? Is
supposed to
it
start implementing
It's
it, and then
similar to
COVID hit
Canva,
and blew all of that.
or
mm,
is it Canva or Canvas?
Canvas? Yeah.
Canvas, yeah, it's similar to that. And other ones I've seen, there's another one that's real similar to it. But in all honesty, the closest I can get to is like Blackboard, but
Okay.
for younger grades. And it's set up pretty much the exact same way. They can click on the classroom on the folders that the teachers create. And I really, truly like it. I was hesitant because Google Classroom is so easy, linking any Google form to it, which you can do at Schoology too, just maybe an extra two steps.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, I love it. So it's one I use now. I've used it in other courses. Um, I'm this year we were not required to do the hybrid method. So I don't know if y'all had to do the hybrid method, but last year was a teaching year from hell, trying to
Yeah.
teach digital online, and then also the students who came back to campus. And I was like, y'all, I can't have these two groups at the same schedule. But that's what I had to do. And so my students that were face to face, they opened up their laptop and we did a Google Meet every single day through Schoology with the digital students, and that's how I taught.
Right.
And
Same for us.
yeah, and after that, I maintained Schoology this year, and it's been a little lifesaver because I still, every time I do my lesson plans, I create my Schoology course with it. We still use it to teach. It is all in person now, but you still get students who are out for a week or two with COVID, and to maintain, their education, they go on Schoology and they can keep up with me exactly where we are.
Right. That's interesting that y'all both say like you already had some type of technology integration within your classroom. And I know like what you're saying, Jessica, like I'm on my 5th, 6th year as well. And like that was something they sent us out of school with was you need to integrate technology no matter what. Like you write a lesson, there is somewhere in that lesson plan technology integration. So I kind of already came in with that mindset. But when it comes to like teaching kindergarten during the pandemic, we've got little kids who don't even know, how to spell their own name. So whenever they came into my classroom and I'm requiring them to learn how to log on to my WebEx, click away from WebEx and get onto like Seesaw, which is a learning application, or iStation, where they could go and do testing and I could pull from the various TEKs and see where's this student struggling. Like it really took a lot of routine building for me. But the point is that it's possible. And that's what was really getting me is I noticed a lot of pushback with like my coworkers, like, oh, this is so hard. My students never turn in their work. And I'm like, really? Because I have 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds doing this every week and they log on and off and they're not even, being monitored by adults. I am their adult. But it made it possible for me to work with those kids that were in and out or just never even came during the year. Like, thank God for the technology applications that we had, because I would have never known, can this child read? Because it's really hard to do, a reading level test over a computer. So here I am assigning different assignments through all these resources that the district has. And I'm able to see, okay, they're actually really struggling here. Hopefully, as long as the parents aren't doing the work for them. Like it was interesting to see that there are like, so many people have a drawback towards implementing that technology at the same time as in person, because it really is doable. You just have to find like your routine and you have to set up those standards. It's the same thing as when we have our kids come in for the first week of school. We're teaching them how we want them to act, what we expect from them. So you just have to like set those standards. And before I knew it, the kids were controlling the WebEx for me. So,
Wow.
I think people forget how like innovative children really are.
Right.
They know how to control those iPads. Okay. They know
Yes.
how to do it.
Yes,
So,
they do. Kindergarten, that's who. You said elementary. I was like, okay, I've been doing elementary my whole life, but I always do the top dogs of the campus.
right. They've already had that exposure. So, and that's the best part is let's start them in the very beginning level of their education, so that when they do move forward, they've already accessed these resources. They already know how to send an email. They already know that if they get onto Seesaw, which is, that application I was talking about where they can go and submit work or studies, specific TEKs, like we're counting forwards and backwards to 25. Here is a really fun game where you can go on and record yourself moving the animated objects. And then I have audio, I have drawing, I can, I've got all these different resources, like this different style of assessment where I can see, okay, yeah, they can do this, this, and this, which is what I'm measuring for that, content area. So it was really nice. I really like technology.
I do. I think you saying starting them off earlier, like I think that's a phenomenal idea, but I also get concerned like there's no learning progression or anything that is required. So starting them off, but then we have to continuously add more technology every year. We have to advance that because that is a subject in of itself, for today's society. And we're not required to teach it. But if you are doing an amazing job, these little kindergartners can do all these things. By the time they get to 5th grade, to someone like me, that's all they can do, because no one teach them further and push them more.
Right. And that's the issue is there
Yeah.
is a standstill when it comes to this point. Like we have all these resources, like you said, you can literally do your lessons for this year from the last 2 years of the pandemic, right? Like that online resource
Mhm.
made it easier for you. But how are
Right.
you differentiating? How are you expanding past the next point, for the kiddos that need it more or maybe less? It doesn't matter. How are we moving past that point?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
think
and
about
that's
that a
the
lot
thing with
too.
teaching is that, there is always more, that we could be doing. And so for me, it's a whole lot more of deciding, okay, I'll do this much more, but I can't do the whole universe more.
Right.
Right.
But there is a lot more that we can do. One of the thoughts that was in my mind I wanted to share with y'all is it seems like Steve Jobs or whomever was, putting together the iPhone, like
Mm.
because I know he didn't do consumer testing, but I think maybe he did behind the scenes work with 3-year-olds or something.
He
Because
probably did.
it is, to me, it is so amazing. I have a granddaughter that is 3 in just a few days, and she is so adept with the phone. It is crazy. In fact, her mom got concerned about all of that, took her off of the phone. She found a block of wood and she uses the block of wood as her iPhone.
Hmm.
Nice.
And she does the gestures and talks on it and all kinds
Yeah.
of stuff.
I like all the memes about asking the younger generation, how do you mime answering a phone, and instead of getting this, you get this,
Yeah.
like just their hand up next to their face. I'm just like, seriously? And I did to my youngest sibling. I was like, oh, it's real.
Yeah.
So
They
it always
understand.
cracks me up. Yeah. We triggered something in my brain. I thought, to write it down, and I didn't because I wanted to listen. The
Well, he triggered something in me, that's for sure.
Okay.
It's you were talking about how she picks up the wooden block and she pretends that it's the phone, correct?
Hmm.
That's literally proving how, blended learning impacts that independence within a child. They've had the experience, they've gotten the chance to explore it for themselves and figure out, "Oh, if I click this button, this happens for me." So, already that confidence is being gained, like, "Oh, I know the routine of this." So, like, even the 3-year-old knows, I've figured out some way to click, and if I pretend this wooden block is the same thing, in my imagination, I know that this is where I can take it. So, it's just really interesting.
Yeah. I so that's what it was. You see stuff like, I remember my so I told you I like to do the projects with things I'm kind of already working on because then I can add the research to it and all. And I've always been an advocate for the GT students,
Mhm.
trying to push them to the best they can be and all of that. But then I also really love, my students with disabilities and the RTI. And that's been my focus since pandemic started because here's this pandemic making that gap so much bigger.
Mhm.
And so that's where my
Wow.
focus has been. And I've been doing all this research and finding new programs, and it's been wonderful. And I've been like over the moon happy. Then I find out that my district is now doing GT expos and it is not optional, it is mandated. So I was like, okay. So I have 5 students total GT because they hadn't been tested throughout the pandemic. And I started implementing it. I showed them all the different projects they could do through the program. They got so excited. They took off with this, like without meaning, explain it. They started researching it. No one taught them how to research in these last couple of years. And I'm just like, my little heart was like, oh, I'm so happy. But then I was so mad at myself as an educator
Right.
because I overlooked this. They are craving learning right now. And that technology has to be there for them, So I brought up the idea at the beginning of this class, I was like, okay, so I've done e-portfolios. Well, I've done portfolios for GT students before. And I was like, would we like to try to do a digital portfolio? And they're like, what do you mean? Like your Schoology? Like we can create our own Schoology? I said, well, we could. I said, or you can create a website. Their minds were blown. I've never seen them get so excited. I've
Wow.
got one
Oh,
kid. He's like, I want
interesting.
to do marketing. I want to design a product and I'm going to sell it. And I was like, okay, kiddo, you go. Take your 10-year-old self and let's go. And he's like, can you show me the website? And so I pulled up the Wix.com website And I show him, I said, okay, so you want to do this? And I was getting ready to give him like a pre-designed template for marketing. And he was like, why can't I just click start fresh? Like, and I want it, that means you have to, okay, I can figure that out, Miss Jones. And I was just like, okay. So we pushed it and he was running back to me. And I was like, look what I can do here. Look what I can add. Look. And just that freedom he felt and that love. And I was just like, man, I failed, but we're fixing it. Come on. And so I just like that little 3-year-old and that excitement for picking up that block as a phone, these kids, using that technology for their interest as it's grown, it is so important. And, not that we can't still work with our kids that need to close that achievement gap, but oh, it blew me away. And I like still like every day they're in there at 7 a.m. with me until 7:30, just working on their websites and innovating. And, I've got 2 girls that are collaborating and they're using that terminology like they're educators. And I was like, y'all are amazing.
Mhm.
So
My littles will they'll get on the iPads and they know that the iPad has Siri, which means I don't know how to spell this, but if I talk to the iPad, she'll find what I'm looking for, right? So I'll hear them pull up, they'll say Siri, Google Maps, and then they'll say Siri, Janie Stark, which is the name of our school, right?
yeah,
And they will go and they're like, "Oh, it's to the north." How do you even know the difference between north, south, east, and west? But they do because Siri tells them, and they realize, that means we're going up. So, like, they're learning content that I haven't even gotten to yet simply because they're diving into the iPads, figuring out where they're
that's
at.
amazing. Like,
They know their addresses. They know
oh my
everything.
goodness.
They're like, "My house." I'm like, "Well, it's not gonna find it that way. So what's nearby your house?" And then I'm telling you, eventually they find their house on there somehow. So,
Well, and Google Maps for kiddos is so captivating.
yes.
I actually teach Google Maps in one of my classes, but in all of my classes, the kids love getting on there and showing off, this is my house and
Mhm.
all of that kind of stuff. And it's really interesting how, maps were, I've always been interested in maps, but not like this.
Right.
Right. They're
you
like, "I
know,
can't believe there's a picture of where I live on the internet." And then they're like,
right.
"I wonder if I can find McDonald's over there." I'm like, "You
Yes.
can. You actually can." They're
Have,
amazed by it.
have y'all done the virtual field trips with them?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah. That through the Nearpod, they've integrated more now, but back in the beginning, they had the different ones you could go to, and my kids loved it. And I would share it out to their devices. And I work at my entire district's Title One, so
Mhm.
we
Me
were the
too.
guinea pigs. So they just had gotten their first devices for this class, and before it was 1-to-1, and they would zoom in and zoom out, and they were just having fun, just learning how to use a computer, basically. And then those virtual field trips, they were amazing. I thought, okay, I'm going to show them all these things. And then I teach 5th grade, and the one thing in 5th graders are those hormones. And then I started realizing they were zooming in and out because they wanted to see how the girls look dressed.
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
New York City had lots of people for them to look at. And I was like, okay, we're not visiting New York anymore. We're
There's
not
a negative
visiting
downside.
the mountains. Like,
We'll definitely keep away from San Francisco or
Right.
Austin. Oh my God.
Woo! Yeah.
it was just, I was like, teacher mistake. Okay, I should have seen that one coming. No people in your virtual field trips.
Yeah, you can imagine with seventh graders.
No, I
Oh,
can't. Like,
well, you can imagine with kindergartners what they'll find on the iPads, okay?
Yeah,
You know, that's one of the issues is the restriction is not there. Even though we have like
yeah,
fire blockers, and all those different things, it's still not there because there's only so much you can control. But that's like
right.
the best part about technology is once you start searching, you just might find what you're looking for, whether
right.
it's just one letter that you put in there. Somehow it's popping up for references. I don't know.
So that prompted another question. For your blended learning classrooms, how are you guys implementing digital citizenship?
To an extent, we do like the habits, like behavioral digital citizenship, that type of thing. Because we only do it to an extent, like how they react on the internet, like a
Mhm.
contract they might sign saying, I will do that, that type of thing. Is that what we're talking about?
Like that's yeah, like that's the what is it? Netiquette.
Etiquette,
And
yeah.
yeah. um and just in general, because they
We
are
just have
so
to make
advanced
rules.
in moving through it that I feel like we use the what is it? CSS, or we have a script that we're supposed to program that we go through.
Mhm.
And I was like, I'm just not a fan of the way that they're providing digital citizenship, because I'm having so many conversations that are out of the scope of that. And I was just curious on how other people were doing it. Is it being addressed with
Barely.
the rate that we're integrating technology or not?
Right. It's
Yeah.
barely addressed. That's a great question because
So,
we barely address it. We might make them sign a contract and then maybe,
mhm,
address it when the parent. I just got an email. My child figured out how to get onto YouTube. Is there any way I can block it on the iPad? No, there isn't. So we have to discuss why it's not appropriate, why we don't take pictures of other people in the classroom
mhm.
because of privacy laws. Like we discuss it, but do we implement it as heavily as we should or set up like a standard that they should meet for it? No. And that's like really important, honestly. We should.
Yeah.
Well, when things are normal, which they've been like semi-normal this year.
Right.
Um, in my classes, I do about a week of digital citizenship before we crack open the computers, and
Mhm.
I use a program called Brain Pop,
Yes.
and it is kind of uh, I guess cartoon oriented is
Mhm.
maybe the right term for it, but it's animated and it seems to hold their attention pretty good, and it's short videos, and so we can do maybe a couple of short videos with the discussion and all of that sort of thing, and I usually do 4 or 5 or 6 of those before we really get going, uh, to try to give them some background, knowing that these guys have been on the computer a lot.
Mhm.
They've already got a lot of bad habits.
Yes.
And a lot of this is like, oh, please. But,
Mm.
to try to share some info and some like worst case scenarios and, you know, because down through time, I've learned a few worst case scenarios. I've helped a lot of people, including myself, that have screwed up.
Yeah, we have like those worst case scenarios. I'll use them to explain to students why you shouldn't do this and that, because just saying, "Oh, it's a school rule," that doesn't mean anything
Oh,
to
yeah,
them,
for sure.
And but I'm finding that really there's no consequences set in place if it's not ridiculously illegal. I've got my students, they can take their devices home and their parents sign a contract, and the kids sign a contract that no one really fully understands that.
Mhm.
So they go home and they're going to look up porn, on this. I was like, sweetie, when I pull up their history, because you have that teacher intuition, when they're in their backpacks on their phones, when they're on a website they shouldn't be on if you're actively
Yes.
monitoring your class. And they haven't figured out the history yet. They will. By the end of the year, they always figure out how I figure this out. And I'm just like, sweetie, you can't do that. Sweet, why are you on Roblox? Why are you on this website? Oh, well, when I was at home, I said, it's still a computer device. The district knows everything you're clicking on. Okay. And I'm just like, and there's no consequences unless you break your computer. Then you got to pay for it. But
That's so funny you mentioned that because well, students in the future will know when you tell them
yeah.
why you know that because I'm one of those teachers that I tell them I can feel it. With the kindergartners, you really know when they're not doing their work.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as I feel that, I'll go up to them or someone will say, blah, blah, blah's on YouTube instead of Epic Books or iStation Reading. I'll say, are you on a different website? And they'll say, no. And I'll say, well, I want you to know all I have to do is get up, double click that middle button on that iPad, and I can see every single browser you have open. I don't have it open. And then I like to show them where that screen is still open. And they're like, I didn't know you could do that. And I'm like, and that's the point. I can see everything you do. So when you go home, you don't mess with this iPad unless it's for school purposes. We
Mm-hmm.
try and tell the parents too, but I don't think a lot of people understand what they're signing. I really think
Right.
like this is
Right.
just an iPad. I can Google whatever I want on this. You cannot. we are tracking it through the
Yeah.
district. Like, please
Well,
don't.
and they have that feeling of my child would never do anything inappropriate on a school device, and I'm just like, do you remember what it's like to be a child and have all these questions? And now you're giving me a tool that I can look up any question to anything and I'm good.
Right.
So,
And that's
This
a
is
nice
reminding
thing.
me of, and I haven't thought about this in a while. This is it was before COVID, so 2 or 3 years ago,
mhm.
that some of my kids were talking about, and I thought I misunderstood them, but they were talking about Corn Hub.
Oh my
And
gosh. Yes.
so I don't know if you can
That
see
was,
that. Yeah.
uh,
Yes.
And I thought they were saying the other word. And I was like, what? Said, and yeah, you can go to Corn Hub. And I'm like, you can't go to Corn Hub on this. This is monitored. And so then they pulled this up, and it was a big joke in the class. But
Right.
it's all about corn.
Yes. That's so accurate for older age students. I feel like that the culture of them is just so relevant for that.
But they did catch me off guard.
yes, we had so much situation, but they were making an innuendo in class. But I was like, kiddo, you stood up in the middle of class and yelled corn hub. And I wasn't mine. The other teacher, it was her first year. She's like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And so I had to go in there and say, first of all, it's okay. You're fine. Kids are being kids. And I was like, sweetheart. And so then we did the whole having to call the parent and explain it. And mom was mortified that, and I was just like, oh. And some of these kids, I'm just like, you're funny. I can't tell you you're funny.
Right. You are funny. This is
Like,
funny. This is not okay.
all appropriate
Right.
conversations you'd be having.
Oh, we have a lot of those in kindergarten. We have a lot of conversations like that. This is very funny. This is very bad. How
That's a
did you
big
figure
term.
that out?
Mhm. But I mean, we're going to find all the negatives of blended learning and we're going to laugh and joke about it. But the fact is, eventually using this type of learning and integrating all this technology, they're going to surpass the educators soon with the abilities that they can do.
Absolutely. They figure it out. You just have to
Mhm.
give them that quick little tutorial. Maybe you should show them which application it is, what you kind of thought you might want to see. You're not really
Yeah.
giving them their instructions, right? Like with blended learning, there shouldn't be true step-by-step instructions. You rather than figure out why am I doing this so that when they go down the road, there's an authentic connection, something that clicks. Like you're not going to forget this because I took this step, this turn to get to the point that I'm at. That's how I learned. So actually, I wish I would
Mhm.
have had like the opportunity to kind of figure it out myself. I thought when I started this program, this is my nightmare. Like, how am I supposed to do all these assignments, especially with Dr. H? Because he's very vague. He's very vague. Like him and I have gotten into it. I'm like, I don't know what you're saying. And he's like, think hard, baggy. I'm like, all right. But like, he's right. I know so much that I didn't realize I knew.
Mhm.
And like we'll be sitting in meetings and I'm like, that's blended learning. That's growth mindset. Like all of these things that we've actually known the whole time. I just wasn't able to make the connections because I never made it something of my own. But with
Mhm.
the website, it made it more possible to something that I understood, those COVA terms, you know?
And you made a great connection there, this whole blended learning and how you're saying that it allowed you to make connections. You knew the information, but you just didn't connect it. And that
Mhm.
technology component, the website component, did that. It bridged it. And that's exactly what we want the blended learning to do. These students, I mean, I struggle with them. I teach both math and science. And when they mix, they're like, what are you talking about? You know,
Mhm.
I know you taught me how to measure in math. What does it have to do with measuring in science? This is totally different. It's like, sweetheart, it's the same thing. And so until you put it in the science activities of measuring into my math class, then they're like, wait, are we doing science or math? I was like, you're doing math, but this is science. I said, no, it's math.
Same
And for them
thing.
to
Yeah.
that platform. So mine might be a smaller integration of it, but starting to make those connections cross content, which is something they're always looking for. Are you using cross curricular activities? Are you providing it? Are those connections being made? And you're like, we're trying, but verbally it doesn't do anything. Now
Mhm.
being able to give those hands-on technology, things, let them explore it and be like, oh. So as an adults, we need that. Our students definitely need it. So I do. I love the website idea. Yeah, definitely.
I hated it, but I like it now. Like in the end, when I was talking to you, Jessica, I'm like, hey, like go look at my website because I do have everything done. And that's literally what Dr. Bedard, Dr. H will recommend to us is go look at each other's websites. They'll make some of our websites examples. And like without the websites, I'm telling you, I don't know if I would have made it through the program because if I can't understand a concept, maybe I can go look at your website and what you said in that 5 paragraphs. I was like, wow, that everything makes sense now. Like maybe Dr. H said it a million times. YouTube told me. I still don't understand, but I've seen how you've laid it out because I got to go figure out why myself.
And that's exactly what I did, Amanda, because I was looking at your website because my lit review, I have all the research done and everything. I was like, but how do I organize it? You're saying this is not a normal paper. How do I organize? I can knock papers out. That's been one of my gifts. I despise writing, but I've always been able to just sit down and do it, and the citations don't bother me. And I was like, but how am I late? So I did. I pulled up yours and I was like, introduction. And I literally opened up a document, put introduction and like, okay, title 1, topic 1, topic 2, topic 3. And then I filled them in what those were for me. I was like, oh, I can do this. and I found your website and I was like, okay, I got this. 5 pages in already, and I was like, okay.
Well, setting an example makes such a big difference. If you can, I guess,
yes,
this indicates we're visual learners or something, but
yes,
to be able to see it just makes such a difference in being able to, oh, okay, now I get it. And whereas, we're just floundering around otherwise.
Right. And I think that has to do with how we've been like brought up in education in general. Like we've always been expected for a test. You teach towards the test. You do this assignment towards what is expected of mastery at the end of it. And this class, blended learning, all these different types of implementation, they're not asking for a prompt. They're asking for you to start from point A to get to point Z. And like if you did like zigzag to get to there, that's great because you made it and you found a new way to learn this information. And it's authentic to you.
Now take that concept that is amazing and let's apply it to the public education. Like
happening. Yeah. You have
are you listening up there, whoever is making our test and all of that, because it is. And you've got so many, like the students I've taught over the years, getting from point A to even point B is difficult, and Leslie, you brought up the visual learners. And what I'm learning over time is that concept of auditory, visual, and kinesthetic, those different types of learning, there's not as big a distinction. Once in a while, I'll find, oh, you really need everything visually. Okay, you really need your manipulatives, but otherwise, it is a legit blend of all of those, with technology. And you need to put all of those modalities out there for them, for all students to succeed. I don't consider myself auditory learner, visually give it to me or let me research it myself. I'm great. But now as I've gotten older, it's like, wait, no, just give me one explanation real quick. Okay, I'm good. So I want all three as well. And I think that comes from me just teaching and realizing that's how a lot of people learn, and then realizing the benefits of it, and then just getting comfortable and using it. And now that's what I want.
Right. What else?
I think that's a good point, that as teachers, we need to realize that those 3 types of learning exist and we need to be in each of those modes. And it's going to hit some students, maybe hit another student, not hit this student over there, but just keep changing. The tactile is the hardest, but
digital integration helps.
But exactly. So you're on the keyboard, you are on the mouse, tactile.
I mean, it does. And if you've got what is it, the virtual manipulatives, just even now touchscreen is a lot easier, but being able to put your mouse on a manipulative and be able to move it around, that's a version of the tactile as well as the visual that's letting them see it. They can't physically touch it, but our students have been raised with technology to understand that concept. They can visualize them holding that cube if they can see all parts of it. So
right. And like kind of what you're saying, our education system, right? Like we have all these great resources. I'm Title One, we're 1-to-1. That's like amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how are we trying to actually implement them in the classroom and use them to like the best of their abilities? That's the issue, is like I feel like we have all these resources, but then we get stuck on the difficulties of it and like opposers. Because I did like for the courses, I don't know if you've done this yet, Les, but like you have a course where you develop content, like you would create a class.
Right.
And mine was over blended learning implementation within the classroom and why teachers should do it, how you can do this. So that was what my course was over. And I feel like, honestly, we really do need that offered as a PD. I don't think we even think about that. But since the pandemic, that should have been like number one priority. How can we reach our students from home, or how can they reach us through technology? Because that's how a lot of our kids are still learning. Even with, COVID slowing down, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of our kids will go home because mom got COVID, dad got it, and now they're out for a whole month quarantining and they just got it. So how are we reaching them at home if our teachers aren't trained on that? What are we doing? We're just wasting more time creating bigger learning gaps that we already are struggling to close. So I really believe like that course made me think, "Oh my God, we don't even offer this." And I just made one up in like a few days on how easy this could be for us. And mine's completely online, asynchronous.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
So I don't know. I think like we really need to start thinking about that. And how are we going to prepare our teachers and our parents and our students for the next years coming up?
Well, I think you're exactly right. And even totally post COVID, we are working in education towards one-to-one technology with
Mhm.
students. And some of us are already there where that's the case. But are we effectively using it? And do teachers have any idea how to really use it? It's
Mhm.
just sort of thrust upon them. And, it's just a headache in some ways. Whereas, you know, we need to have more learning on our side, just like what you're saying, having, PDs and just incorporated, I don't know, it may be incorporated into education programs. Do y'all have any idea if, at
The
the
only one I can
college
think of
level?
is this one. This
Yeah.
is the first
Yeah.
time I realized that there's an opportunity to go and actually help teachers utilize the resources we have. I feel like a lot of the times they throw them at us and they're like, "Hey, we bought this for $6,000. Have a great time. Here's a book that teaches you how to do it."
Right.
Whereas like I'm like, "Wow, this is a job. Like this, you could go train corporate America with this. This is
Mm-hmm.
important. It's not just education based. It's everywhere." So I think like, wow, there's a lot of opportunities opening up for us.
Well,
So what
there.
I noticed over the district was it started with the computer classes.
Mhm.
They disappeared slowly, and the gen ed classroom teachers were expected to teach typing and all those skills in addition to it all. And I was like, okay. Um, and then our technology specialists, they were just supposed to go around and help teachers with their technology. And then they disappeared. And then they brought them back as digital learning specialists, but now it's like one for every 6, 7, 8 campuses.
Yeah, there's not enough. There's not.
Right. So all those other ones lost their jobs and they had to go back to the classroom or they transferred out of the district. And then a few were fortunate to say, I think elementary, we have 4 for the entire elementary
Yeah, we
part
have
of it.
6 and we have over 30 something elementary schools. So that
Right.
Yeah.
is
That's
insane.
exactly what happened with us too.
Hmm.
Exactly.
And then
You
the
know?
arts and all that, they're gone. And then the pandemic hits. I'm just like, and they're all sitting back there going, mm-hmm,
Mhm.
didn't need us, did you? But you know, fortunately for us, my district, they did do 2 weeks. Like I remember because the pandemic, we closed down the week after spring break. So we were already on break. And then it did a
Yeah,
one
that's what
week.
happened.
We did 1 week, so basically we ended up with 2 weeks spring break. And then the third week after the students were still off for like a week and a half while they trained the teachers on the platform. And I was fortunate that I had already was starting to play with Schoology because I knew that they were leaning that direction.
Mm.
And so I was like, okay. So I was the one, and it was literally a bunch of the professional developments. They were a joke, way too much information and a very stressful time. Because you're like, all these lessons and learning a new platform and then trying to figure out it was a mess. But what I'm trying to get to is that after all of that and after the last hybrid year, we were still expected to maintain a digital presence. So if the staff, and I don't know if it's being followed up with or whatnot, but that's partly why I maintain my Schoology course with Fidelity. It's because it was required, supposedly. And now I'm seeing that the district, for most of us, it's not an issue. You know, a lot of us, we can create a Schoology course. We know how to put, at the bare minimum, they know how to copy the tests and the quizzes from the district, from their platform onto our Schoology platform and to open it up for the students to take. So there's not as many struggles with that. Now, if you want to get fancier and create your videos and all that in there, there's going to be some struggling. But it's just that there needs to be more than just that professional development piece.
Right.
It's so much more than that.
Yeah, you need someone on campus to help with these things. Like, I know we want teachers in the classroom, and some of us don't want to be in the classroom anymore, and we'd rather do this. And we're really going to make it worth their while. Like, it's really going to impact student learning. I don't know why we ignore data and, you know, all of these different amazing reports, peer
You
review.
don't have enough time for me to talk about that topic. You just hit my passion there.
Well, that I'm telling you, that was my whole course. My whole course was over why this should have already been happening and how easy this can be asynchronously. And we can keep it open all year, open forum discussion. Come back to it when you're ready. We can have an argument 6 months from now, you know? So just something to really think about. I don't know.
It is. Did y'all take the course? I'm reminded through this conversation about that we had a course, or I had a course in creating professional development. Did y'all have that?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I took that one as well.
Okay, so I did two of them. One where you are expected to create like a 5-week long professional development.
Yes, that's the one I'm talking about. And
okay,
then
I did that one.
So there's another one called an
there's
online
two.
course.
Oh, yes.
I thought that's what you were talking about.
There's another one that's a professional learning community.
Gotcha,
the difference between what are between those two.
Mhm.
And so seeing for like you did what like most people in my courses did, because they're like, oh, create a 6-week session, da da da. And I was like, okay, teaching space to 5th grade, you know, and I used my lesson plans, and everyone else was like, okay, how to teach teachers. I was like, am I going about this the wrong way? You know,
it seems impossible to start for some reason. And we do it all the time too. So
yeah, and I just used currently what I had because I had that. And for me, it was one of those, it's easy if you can see it done, you know. That's for me why professional development doesn't work, you know, for this digital aspect, because they spend too much time explaining the theories, explaining the benefits, explaining the whys, showing you, which I love data, but when you're wanting to get the outcome to be
outcome-based
engagement, the engagement of digital learning in the classroom and getting your teachers to do it, giving all that extra information, you spent 3/4 of your professional development with that information instead of showing us finished projects and then letting us try to create it and then ask the questions that we're going to bombard you with if we don't know how to input a link, you know? So, and that's where like the professional learning communities, that's the one where you have the topic and you're implementing it slowly over like a long period of time, and you're coming in and so if you're teaching this how to, you show up in that teacher's classroom and you'd co-teach with them, or you'd work with them through creating whatever digital component they're adding. So that I'm a big proponent for. I really wish we could switch to professional learning communities, you know, and that would, I feel like, ease the people that are so scared and hold on to, I don't know technology, but that excuse is running out because it's been around now for a while. So we're obviously hurting our staff members as well as our students by not training the staff properly and getting them comfortable. They're scared still.
Right. It's the hesitancy. It's the, I don't know, I can't do this. I'm not smart enough to do this. I don't know how to control email. Why would I know how to make it? course. You do
Mhm.
though. You do. It's just
Right.
finding the
It's
way.
that comfortable spot in your
Mhm.
head to say, I can't do this. And y'all, tell me honestly, how many of you guys went to professional developments online to learn about
Yeah.
digital technology and opened up another tab and listened to the professional development while you were participating in whatever you needed to get done?
Right. That's the
You
point.
know,
I
like,
never did that. No.
I think these like really good points on like why blended learning is great, why technology integration does offer COVA, all those different
Mhm.
independence that we're looking for in our students, but also why it is a hindrance and how are we as the organization going to change that. So I think that's a nice like way to wrap up what we were talking about because we do have all these great opportunities, but we also have a lot that we have to work on implementing and
Yeah,
developing over the years and actually moving forward with it, like not stopping there because just because the pandemic ends or whatever we were doing before is not as heavily invested, it's still to the future of what we're going to see education turn into, you know?
right.
Well, hopefully the
So,
pandemic underlined to us the importance of this area so that maybe we will now finally decide that it's important enough we need to really learn how to do it well.
right. I think it brought urgency.
Hmm.
There's our why for why we need blended learning.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we need to all be taking your course, Amanda.
I think everybody should, sometimes I know what I'm talking about randomly. I don't know.
I bookmarked her website. I'm good. I'll be getting to it.
How many minutes are we at?
um, I didn't set the timer,
I can
but
tell
we
you.
started shortly after 4:30.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna tell you, I think we have met our max minutes if we wanted to stop.
Something like that. Well, could I ask a couple of questions?
Yeah.
Yes, most
Um,
definitely.
and this is just not really actually from the podcast standpoint, but about publication of the podcast. Would it be okay to do this as a video? Jessica, it felt like that you were a little hesitant, but actually, I think because of you, you're very animated and very visual. Uh, I mean, I think you ought
Well,
to be
do you
doing
see that
YouTube stuff.
redness?
And
No,
I'm
honestly, I
betting that
can't.
Amanda is also, but we just have a picture of Amanda. So
You
we
don't
can't
have
see
you want
how
me to have a picture
animated
of
you are.
it?
Oh no, I've got the video.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I swear I'm live. Well, there you go. I
Okay,
mean, I'm
yeah,
okay with it.
I can upload the video. I've there was what is those TEA videos? I don't know if y'all had to do them um in the I don't know. I just know you guys in the D program, okay, and I'm in the E program.
Right.
Um,
Dr.
but
Bedard
yeah,
likes video. She does.
okay,
She likes to feel like we're with her. She wants to feel engaged with us. I will tell you that.
that's excellent. Um, so that's perfect because I can do that, and I mean, if you guys want me to edit this at all, I can. It's also just it's authentic. Um, it's still technology based conversation,
Right?
That's right.
and so I can do that. I don't remember which editor I had, but trust me, I figured it all out because Zoom, I recorded one time on it and I forgot to hit it because it wasn't what I did. So I was like, I am comfortable with Google Meets. I've been teaching online and recording for 3 years with that one.
Wow.
So I
That's what
can.
I'm saying. When you said Google Meets, I'm like, yes. I didn't think about Google Meets. It's way better. You don't have to edit it, honestly. It should, we can upload it and download it into our own YouTube videos. That's the
Yeah,
beauty of
that's awesome.
technology. We can do what we want to it.
Excellent. Well, then I will work on that this evening. You should have it no later than tomorrow morning.
Oh
Just
yeah.
I'm checking and family and animal needs
You
require
can do what
some.
you need to do. Don't worry. Yes, we're good. We'll figure it out. I feel like that was very productive.
I
Yeah.
think so.
Any other questions though before we get off here? Because I mean, you get me talking, and I will continue on. You want to talk about that data driven?
Well, we're also reserved and shy, you know.
Right. That's what it is. That's why we can't have conversations. Right.
By the way, I like your background. I forgot about Google Meet backgrounds.
Who knew? See, that's just another thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is. I am in. I call it my Harry Potter closet. because we're trying to move. And so right now it's a chaotic mess everywhere with packing and renovating to move. And this was so I could be quiet but closed off from my animals who demand attention. And
Right.
then, yes. So I was like, it's raining here and I'm cold. So this is that's my soul behind me.
Well, there you go. Well, that was
Perfect.
great.
All
Uh,
right.
well, then I will be talking to y'all later.
Well, that sounds
Don't
cool.
forget to
This was
end
fun.
the recording session too.
I
Whatever
will.
you do.
Let me go ahead and do that now. Turn on my mouth.